My name is Kit, and today I'm talking to Dan. Dan, you're a mechanic, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Dan, how long have you been in business?
Been in business now in total about 5 years.
Okay. So what happened before? What were you doing before that?
Okay, so before that, obviously, apprenticeship from leaving school, trained on trailers and HGV. Went from there, then carried on the HGV front. Went throughout, then about 10 years ago now, decided I had enough of HGV. So then I went along and started working on plant. So JCBs, crushers, dumper trucks, you name it.
This is repair and
Repair,
maintenance?
service, maintenance, you know, basically anything big and heavy.
Okay.
You know, I was kind of at the forefront and still am.
Okay. And then what happened?
From there, I was working for JCB at the time and got made redundant. And from that, I started myself up self-employed. The recession really bit in. Work dried up a little bit. Job offer was put on the table. Went back employed. Worked for that company for 6 months. Got made redundant. So then started back up self-employed, and here we are today. You know, still self-employed.
How do you compare the experience of being employed with being self-employed? How do they compare?
To be honest, there's no real difference. Okay. When you're employed, you get your paycheck at the end of either every week or every month. Yeah? Your employer will look after your tax and your national insurance. Okay. What I've found is that there are bank accounts now that you can get, business accounts. They're free for 18 months, 2 years. Okay. They will set you up subsidiary accounts. So you get paid X amount. Then the money then gets transferred into the various accounts to cover your national insurance and your tax. From that, the rest is yours. So there's no difference. All right. So you get paid holiday pay in a full-time job. But you do charge a bit more than what you would get being employed. So say if your hourly rate is, say for argument's sake, £7 an hour being employed, you'd normally charge, for argument's sake, £14 an hour.
And that would take account of the tax and the hours you're not working.
That's right. And then obviously then when you go on holiday or whatever, you put that away and then it's there for you as it is. The days of having a job, having sickness pay, benefits, and this, that and the other, long gone.
What about the security of employment versus self-employment?
Well, employment, as far as I'm concerned, you are putting your hands and your lifestyle in somebody else's hands. There's no way of taking control of your life, right? If I'm employed and I've got to rely on somebody else to find that work, to spur forward, to allow my living life to be better, I've got no control. I've got no control over their accounts or anything like that. I don't know how the business is doing. I've got no control. So I can be laid off the next day if the VAT bill isn't paid or if the tax bill isn't paid or this, that and the other. That's my job gone. Being employed, I've got control over all that.
If you're self-employed?
If I'm self-employed, beg your pardon, I've got control over all of that. So, if I look at 1 week of the year and think, oh, I ain't got a lot of work there, I can go out and go and get some work. Yeah? And, if I've got too much work on, I can then turn around and, say for argument's sake, get another subcontractor to come and help me to pile on that work. Obviously I still make a profit, they make their money, and then you go from there. If I was
going to be self-employed mechanic, what kind of work could I do? What's the basic kind of work I could do?
Right. If you are untrained, i.e. you've had no City and Guilds experience, you could certainly look at some repair work. Okay. I would suggest don't go too technical to start with. Don't run before you can walk. Okay. So You could look at repair work to suspension. You know, it's all pretty self-explanatory there. You know, it's kind of follow the dots and you'll find the fault. You could certainly do servicing work. Okay, so obviously various vehicles out there, whether it be, you know, cars, motorbikes, plans, HGV, vans, they all need servicing.
So could you be a mobile mechanic? Would you advertise as a mobile mechanic?
Yeah, I mean, I can't see any reason why not. Obviously, you know, unless you have kind of a background in mechanics, i.e. you've tinkered on a Saturday for the last few years, I'd certainly suggest at this point in time, if you just wanted to set up, I would set up as a servicing unit rather than a breakdown and repair unit.
What's the difference?
Right, the difference is servicing, it is set. Okay, so you are set to what you are carrying out. Okay, so you are set to change the oil filter, change the oil, change the fuel filter, go through the brakes. Okay, check the brakes. Obviously, if they need repairing, repair them, replace them. Okay. A breakdown mechanic is, if you're driving down the M5 at 70 miles an hour and something goes wrong in that engine, you're then called upon to go out and fix that problem. Okay. With that kind of work, you do need experience, and I would say enough experience that you can either diagnose or you know the best way to get that vehicle out of trouble. Okay.
It's more complicated.
Oh, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, I mean, obviously, you've got to think fast. You know, and you've got to be able to react quickly to whatever situation it is.
So going back to the kind of maintenance side, then, mm-hmm. What about MOT? Is there MOT work around, for example? Put the cars through an MOT or not, or failures?
You can put cars through MOTs, yeah, by all means. You can't do the MOT yourself. That's got to be done by recognised body, VOSA. They will have their lanes in various locations in and around different cities and things like that, and you take them to those people.
What about a car that won't start? Would people ring you up and say my car won't start, or it seems to be not working properly?
I would suggest if you are breaking into this sector, start small. Okay. You can buy diagnostic equipment, okay, and you can kind of go down that route. That if somebody rings you up first thing on a winter's morning and says, "Oh, my car won't start," 9 times out of 10 you can genuinely say that it is either the battery is flat with the cold weather, starter motor's got moisture in it and so it's frozen, or the alternator basically is on its way out. Okay, they're usually the three main things. But if you're starting out, I would suggest keep it simple, keep it small, and start from the beginning. Start from the basics.
And there are some people who should not enter this trade.
Without a doubt, I think if you've got absolutely no mechanical knowledge whatsoever, take your car to somebody who knows. Okay, don't try to do this trade unless you've got, just the fundamentals. You need to know your limits at the end of the day with this job, because if you send a car down the road and the brakes haven't been done correctly or anything like that, unfortunately, you can end up causing a big accident.
You're putting people's lives at risk.
Without a doubt, and that's the thing. And that's the thing you need to realise is that some vehicles, or a lot of vehicles now, they do carry children in them. If you're doing work on a HGV and the brakes you haven't done the brakes correctly, or you haven't done the work on there correctly to allow it to brake properly, i.e. through the exhaust brake or through the actual foot brake, that could quite easily take out a couple of families.
In the world of mechanics, is there much competition?
There is, to be honest. There are a number of garages, and they do pop up, and then they soon disappear again. With this trade, to be honest with you, is you need to be able to sustain your work. I think if you sustain your work and you're reasonable to people, You've got to forge it. Number one out of all of this, you've got to forge a living, right? But if you sustain work and you keep your customers happy and you're good with your prices, you'll be there infinitum.
So you need to keep your customers happy, and they will keep on coming back to you.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the thing. I mean, that's how I've started. That's how I'm still going now. Is the fact that my customers, they come back to me.
So on day one, you'll have no customers, but if you can last 3 months, 6 months, then you should begin to build up a range of customers who will give you regular work.
Right. If you're going to start, what I suggest you do, the best advice anybody can ever give you is start with your friends and family. Okay? Go around to them and start getting the work coming in that way. Okay? And it's the age-old saying, is if you drop a pebble in the water, you get the ripples. So you do a good job for for one person, they will tell 50. If you do a bad job, they'll tell 100.
So somebody has to have enough experience. But what about qualifications? Are qualifications important? Can you get qualifications easily or not?
Yes, you can gain qualifications. You can gain MVQ, Sitting Guilds. Sitting Guilds goes up to a level 4. MVQ goes up to also, I think it now goes up to a level 5. Okay, Sitting Guilds personally I think is a higher recognised qualification than MVQ. But yes, there are qualifications for it.
So you could go back to college?
Of course you could, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, this mechanical trade, the Sitting Guilds and the MVQ, what that will do is that will give you the fundamentals, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean that will train you on how to work on a specific car, okay? That will give you the fundamentals on how to work on a car or a vehicle and work on it safely.
You would normally work for yourself and on your own, but sometimes you might bring in someone else as well?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, like I said at the start, I do work on plans. There is heavy work involved. Sometimes, if you're taking the boom off a digger, you need a minimum of 2 blokes there.
But on other occasions, you might have a lot of work on and you might need someone else to go and collect a car or to do some work because you're...
Yeah.
So does that mean you need people around you, maybe who know about things? Or not?
No, not personally, no. I think what you need to do is you need to network. Okay? And by networking, you kind of judge straight off who's good and who's bad. Who's the good mechanic, who's the bad mechanic. And they are the keys. Okay? So by networking, so while you're networking for business, you also network for all your suppliers, inclusive of other self-employed mechanics, or you can take on or look at semi-skilled mechanics who are looking for work, and look at that aspect of it at the same time. So you're always thinking, you're always looking forward and looking ahead.
Okay. So if you were to be if I was to be a self-employed mechanic, what kind of customers would you get? Are they people who don't want to go to a formal garage because they think the garage is going to be too expensive, or what?
Right. People that use mobile mechanics or independent mechanics are people that don't want to go to major garages for this simple reason, okay? If you've got a Mercedes vehicle, okay, and you've got an E-Class Mercedes, and you take that to a Mercedes dealership, they'll charge you £122 plus VAT an hour, roughly, okay? Main dealers, because they have got access to immediate parts, okay, there's no waiting time, or if there is, it's literally hours, they can put their prices up. So because of that fact, more people will go independent, okay? Even though you're self-employed, whether you'll be having a workshop or whether you've got a van and you work out the back of a van, you're still an independent mechanic above all else, and that's the thing. It's not like subcontracting or anything like that. You're your own independent business. So
someone rings you, potential customer rings you, says, I've seen your card, I've got a car, it needs service. What happens then?
Okay, they give me the details. They give me the registration number of the vehicle that needs looking at. Okay, I would then ring my suppliers. My suppliers, they all work off the DVLA database. Okay, so they will give me a registration. I'll give them a registration. They'll tell me exactly what filters I need, what oil I need, and they'll give me a price. With that price, then I get that what the price is to myself. They also give me a secondary price, which is what that price is charged out to the customer at.
So some of your income then will come from the margin on parts,
Yep.
and some will come from the hourly rate you would charge?
That's right.
Okay. So you would then go to the customer and work on their car, or they would bring it to you and you would then...
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. What about, you talked about working on trailers, for example.
Yeah.
Is that a good line of business to be in?
Trailer work is good. Okay. HGV trailers, again, they are an independent vehicle now. Okay. You have got to have tax and you have got to have MOT on a trailer. Okay, on a HGV trailer. Trailer laws for cars now are tightening rather rapidly. And I dare say before long you will have MOTs on standard trailers as well. So that market is starting to open up now. Okay, there are a very few independent garages about now that do HGV trailers, but they are few and far between. With trailer work, you're looking at brakes on the hubs, you're looking at bearings, frames and chassis.
Would you do that work on the client's premises?
You normally would do that on clients' premises, yes.
And you would need a commercial client. You would need to find commercial clients.
Yeah, and I mean, in our economy at the moment, you're getting more and more independent haulage firms that are breaking out. The cost of HGV tractor units now has come down in price dramatically. I mean, you can pick up now a HGV unit for the same price as a second-hand Ford Mondeo. So, with that in mind, people are now starting to buy more trucks. But to have a truck is one thing, but you need something to trailer it. So they will then buy the trailers, but they also need the maintenance.
If I'm setting up as a self-employed mechanic, going back to maintenance work on ordinary vehicles, so what kind of equipment would I need?
Okay. I would say, first and foremost, obviously you're going to need your hand tools, without fail. You know, you could probably set yourself up with a decent, comprehensive set of hand tools for about £300. You know, and that's your sockets, that's all your spanners, pliers, hacksaws, things like that.
What about the snap-on tools route?
Right. Snap-on, I wouldn't even dream of. When I first trained as as a mechanic, I brought Snap-on. I thought it was a lot of hype for a lot of money, to be honest with you. They offer a lifetime guarantee on their tools. They were the first ones, they were the first tool company out there to offer a lifetime guarantee. Everybody is now offering lifetime guarantee on tools. You can go to places like Screwfix Direct, Tool Station. They'll sell Silverline spanners, perfectly adequate, lifetime guarantee. Difference in price, you'll buy a set of spanners, Silverline, for about £32 with a lifetime guarantee. For that exact same set, but with a Snap-on brand on it, you'll pay near as damn it £740, £750.
Okay. So you need your hand tools.
Okay.
What about diagnostic equipment?
Right, diagnostics is a very expensive route to go. Okay. You can buy a basic diagnostic tool, okay, which will give you the information for you to get in there and look at where the fault is. that will cost you in and around £100. If you want to get into major diagnostics, i.e. you want to be able to have a laptop, reprogram a car, reprogram items, that is going to cost you in the region of about £3,500. Okay. Basically, a lot of cars now, they run off the same system, which is known as an OBD2 system, and that is basically a SCART lead that you plug into the vehicle, and the vehicle has what's known as an electronic computer unit, and it will read that unit and tell you what's wrong with the car.
So is that essential? If you want to be a mechanic, do you need a diagnostic kit, or not?
I would say you need a basic diagnostic kit. Otherwise, because with the newer engines now, it is a needle in a haystack. Okay, so even if you can narrow it down with a cheaper diagnostic tool to, say, for argument's sake, cylinder 1, you can then get into cylinder 1 and find out what the cause is to then be able to diagnose it properly.
Okay. Would you say there are risks or problems in being a self-employed mechanic?
Of course there are. Of course there are. It's the same as any job. You know, risks are obviously, you know, first and foremost, you're putting your name out there. Okay? So, you're dependent upon suppliers. If your suppliers let you down, you let your customer down. And then the risk that lies in that is obviously you're going to get a bad name for yourself, which is the one thing you just really don't want when you're setting up a business. You know, obviously that risk can be not eliminated, but certainly narrowed by choosing good suppliers and having a good relationship with suppliers.
Do you ever get complaints? Do you ever get a problem with a car that you can't fix and the customer is irritated?
No. I mean, obviously sometimes jobs do take longer than possibly should do, for various reasons. I mean, seized parts is always a bane of a mechanic's life. Bolts that are seized, and this, that and the other, you then got to get oxyacetylene involved and start heating things up to get them out. That takes time. That's, you know, if you've just got to take a bolt out is one thing, that could take 2-3 minutes. If you've then got to start getting oxyacetylene involved and things like that, that 2-3 minute job can suddenly turn into a 30-40 minute job, because you've got to obviously protect the surrounding areas so it doesn't burn and things like that. So that can prolong a job.
Do you ever do any welding at all, or is that a different kind of trade?
No, I do welding personally. I do MIG, TIG and arc. Obviously in plant, especially trailers as well, it's a good skill to have. It's very solid skill. You know, it's kind of another bow really that you can add to your string that, you know, you can advertise as, you know.
What about getting trained in that area?
Well, welding, to be honest with you, is kind of very hit and miss. It always has been. It's a very solid work base. Yes, you can get coded for the welding and things like that, and for that you go to your local tech.
Could you learn by getting a friend to show you what they do?
Yeah, you certainly can. Or the best thing to do, to be honest with you, is go out, buy yourself a cheap welder, get some steel, and have a blast. Yeah. You know, if you're under any doubt on what a weld should look like, go onto YouTube. There's learning instruments on YouTube and things like that. Yeah. They will take you through how to set up your gas, how to set up your wire, how to weld, what angles to hold your torch at, and things like that. Yeah. But start small and build it up from there.
Change the subject. What about prices? How would you decide what to charge? Do you know what other people charge?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, you know, there's several routes to go. The internet now has made the world a very small place. You can get onto the internet. You can find out what people are charging. Have a look around your area. See what people are charging. Obviously, if you've got somebody that's charging £10 an hour off their driveway just down the road, you can't compete with that. You cannot compete with that. Stick to your prices. There are companies out there who specialise as well. So they'll specialise in doing clutches and things like that, because they've got what's known as buying power in the clutch industry. Sometimes you can't compete, but don't all I'd suggest is don't lower your price to win the work, because you won't necessarily make money on it.
Do you do much marketing? And what kind of marketing might you do? You talked about networking, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I do network quite a bit, which is obviously word of mouth, things like that. You know, I mean, things like I am connected up to things like LinkedIn, which is a fantastic tool. You know, I've gained some really good contacts through that. You know, dare I say it as well, Facebook. It's a good way to get out there. It's good cheap marketing. I mean, van sign writing, things like that. It works, but only to a point.
What about things like postcards in shop windows?
No, I never have done.
Okay.
I never have done, for the simple fact is there are that many things that are advertised in shop windows normally.
Okay.
Your card's going to be the last thing to be looked at.
What about advertisements in newspapers?
Again, yes, it's good to a point. However, I do weigh it up with cost. Basically, cost in and cost out. So cost into the paper, which is usually around about the £150 mark, and then cost out. So,
as to how much revenue you might get from that job.
exactly. So, you know, I look at other things like Gumtree, eBay. That's usually quite a nice one to go and do a bit of recovery work, or this, that, and the other. You've got things as well. I mean, there's plenty of websites out there.
It's getting listed on a website.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of free listings and things like that. There's, I mean, also you've got, you know, the builder side of it. You've got the My Hammer and all that lot, but they also do mechanical side, so you can get onto those kind of sites as well.
What about keeping records of the business, keeping records of your income and your expenditure? How would you do that?
Yeah, basically, every day, I'll sit down, I'll look at what I brought in. Okay, so I'll write down what I've paid for it. Okay, I'll put down exactly what I've sold it at. Obviously, what revenue it's produced, what goes to the VAT man, and so on and so forth.
Eventually, you've got to make a self-assessment return to the taxman.
Yeah.
Do you do that yourself?
No.
Who does that?
Accountant.
The accountant. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, is that expensive?
I pay. What did I pay last? It was about £300. Okay.
And is that better than doing it yourself?
Of course it is. I haven't got to worry about it. I haven't got to worry about ticking the wrong box or anything like that. I put all that into my pricing when I actually sell my hours, okay? Because I'm not a mathematician.
And what information, what records would you give to the accountant?
Basically, I give the accountant all of my receipts, okay, with basically spreadsheets that are telling my accountant exactly what that receipt marries up to.
Plus your invoices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then all I do with that is I do it in a monthly format. Okay, so then at the end of it, my accountant ends up with an A4 folder, and in that A4 folder, there's 52 pages in there, representing 52 weeks of the year, and then with that, all of my invoicing for that week, all of my payments for that week, all of my income for that week, and then he has it, and then he sorts it.
What about paying tax? Do you put money aside for tax?
Yep, absolutely. Basically, what I do with that is I set an amount a week that any money that goes into my account, a percentage of that will go straight into a secondary account.
So you keep a secondary account and you put money aside for tax?
Yeah.
Okay. And that means that at the end of the year, when you have to pay your tax bill, you haven't spent it all.
Exactly.
Okay. So tell me, is there anything that you know now that you wish you'd known when you started?
Yeah, basically, it's not as daunting as I first thought it was. People will answer your questions. It doesn't matter how daft they are. There's always people out there. And when I first started, very first started, you know, it's communication is the key. And that's the key to all of us.
Are we talking about getting advice from people in the trade?
Yeah, ask people. Don't be afraid. You know, there's services out there to help you. I mean, even down to, you know, the Prince's Trust. They'll help you and things like that.
Was it? Do you remember what your first job was like? Can you remember your first job
My first job, yeah.
for self-employed?
Yeah. It was a 30-ton crusher. I had to take the jaws out of it. I was there for 3.5 days taking the jaws out. And it was what it was what it was. You know, I knew what I was doing, and I had the confidence in me. Yeah, it's daunting because you're on a site where everybody works for the company that you're doing the work for, and basically you don't work for them, so you haven't got that team spirit, so to speak.
Yeah.
But when you need a hand, just ask them, and they'll come and help.
And when they paid you when they made that payment, how did you feel?
Yeah, obviously it's an achievement. You know, it's like everything. It's an achievement. You know, your first payment, your first 3 months, your first year, your second year's an achievement. You know, and that's what it's all about. And it's all about the more achievements you get, the more self-confidence you get. And the more self-confidence you get, the more business you get.
Is there any advice, finally, that you might give to someone who was thinking of, who had some mechanical knowledge, who was thinking about becoming self-employed? Is there any advice you might give to them?
Give it a go. Give it a go. Because you will find your niche in kind of motor mechanics. It might not be on cars, it might be on motorcycles, and it might not be on motorcycles, it might be on something else. But at the end of the day, the way everything is at the moment, with the economy and things like that, you know, it's only as secure as being employed. There's no hit and miss about all of this. You know, there's work out there, and the work's there to be taken.
Danny Aston, thank you very much.
Thank you.